Are you living by yourself? Have you got a mortgage? Are you at home?
Yeah, so I still live at home.
Wow.
You sure?
I love it. A cash down property in South Africa. I've got a property in the Midlands that's making me an income.
Yeah.
I've got a very good job. I've got side hustles. You are still living at home. As of the time we're making this interview, you're literally in your parents' house right now.
Hey guys.
Hey.
Welcome back to another episode of the How Much Do They Make series. Today we have an amazing guest. You're absolutely going to love her. She is an investment banking credit analyst and she goes by the name Lamide.
Hey Lamide.
Hi Ken. Hi Mary. How are you?
Welcome to the Humble Penny. So excited to have you.
Absolutely.
So Lamide, we're really excited to have you. Do you want to just tell us and your audience what you do for a living and your background on how long you've been doing it for?
Yeah, so hi everyone. My name is Lamide. I am a banker. So I joined an investment bank in London right when I graduated university, which is coming up to 2 years now. And then on the side, I have a few side hustles and I also invest in property. So yeah, that's like a brief overview of me and what I do.
Exciting. We're going to be talking about side hustles. So buckle up, guys. We know you guys love a bit of side hustling, so
Yes.
we talk about that on this channel. Yeah.
So tell us, Lamide, how did you get into investment banking?
I kind of did like the best route to get into it, and I think that was because I knew pretty early on around like my A levels that I wanted to get into banking. And so the easiest route to get into banking, it's still very, very difficult, but the easiest route is to start as early as possible. So in your first year, they do these things called spring weeks, and that's like I wouldn't really call it an internship, but it's sort of like a mini 1 week internship that you apply for. And if you do that, then obviously at that stage, the competition to get into banking is still really, really high, but lower than usual because most people in their first year of university aren't really thinking about, you know, what their careers are going to be. So if you get in there, you can quite easily be pipelined. I say easily, but in comparison to going in like, you know, another route, it's quite usual for you to then be pipelined to a summer internship, and that's like a 10-week internship with the bank, whichever bank you want to get into, and then from there it's another direct pipeline to get the graduate role. So during my first year, I did some spring weeks around finance, not actually specifically in investment banking. I actually couldn't get in because even though I was on it super early, it was still very, very, very competitive.
Wow.
Yeah, but I took all my L's from my first year and all the difficulties and learned a lot about the application process. And then in my second year, I geared up and I was like, I'm going to get into this bank. And then I got in and did the internship. And then from the internship, I converted that to a full-time grad role.
Wow.
Wow.
Did you, by the way, just to be clear, did you have to have, is there a prerequisite to get into investment banking, like a particular finance degree or anything like that, or a particular uni even that you might have gone to?
Well, I think this is the part that's always up for contention. Banks definitely do have target universities, so universities where they target particular students because one, they want a certain caliber of students, you can say, and sometimes it's the lazy way, but perhaps the easier way to just filter by university and just target a specific amount of university. So I studied at the London School of Economics, and at my uni, it's known for being the pipeline for investment bankers because, well, first of all, most people study like econ and finance and stuff like that. And it's not that you need econ and finance to get into banking. It's that people who want to go into banking think they need to do an econ and finance related degree to get in. So yeah, so that's kind of like I did go to a target uni in that sense. But in terms of like specifics of you need this grade, that grade and that, like I don't really think there is that. Really, because even like when I graduated from my internship, I thought they would tell me like you need to at least get a 2-1, which I obviously did, but that wasn't even in the contract. So yeah.
So tell us a bit more about you personally, you know, where you grew up, what you studied in college, and obviously what degree you did at university.
Yeah, so I grew up in East London, and I kind of went to a very, because at that time, so I grew up in Hackney, and at that time it's not as trendy and it wasn't as trendy and whatever as it is now. And so the school that I went to for secondary school wasn't very good. I think it had like a 50% pass rate for people to get like 5 A stars and C. So it wasn't very good. But I had a good group of friends around me and I was very competitive naturally. So I kind of focused and did really well. And then actually for my first year of A-levels, I went to a new school. I won't mention the name, but it's in Newham. But because it was a new school, it was really, really bad. Like the teaching was really, really bad. I still managed to do relatively okay, but then I decided that I wanted to move schools. And then I stumbled across, literally, I just typed in like best schools in London, and I accidentally called this private school, and I told them about my situation. I said, here are my grades. I kind of want, so when I did my GCSEs, I got all A's and A stars. I think I got like 8 A stars and 3 A's, which was like the highest in my year. And then I did my AS levels, and then I got 2 A's and 2 B's, and I wasn't very happy with that because I knew I could do a lot better than that. And I know it's like, oh, you should be happy, but I knew I could do a lot better than that, especially given my GCSEs. And at that point, I wanted to study chemistry at university, and I got a B in chemistry. So I wasn't very happy with that. So I called this school that I knew was good. I didn't know it was a private school. Yeah. And they were like, oh, okay, yeah, sure, like you can join, but you know you have to pay like 30K a year. And I was like, oh, I didn't know that this is I was like, never mind. And I cut the phone, and they actually called me back, and they were like, you know what, like given your background, given your grades, we'd actually love to offer you a scholarship. So I actually got a scholarship. What? Yeah. So I actually ended up getting, yeah, it was like, honestly, it was only God, because it was just so random. Wow. Like, it was so random. So then I went to this school. I came from like East London, and I was now going to school in Kensington and Chelsea, literally on like Kensington High Street. So it was a big culture shock. Wow. Yeah. It was a hard year. It was a hard year because it was just such a big shock for me. But yeah, so then I went to school there, and then I got my 3 A's in maths, the history, and psychology. So I ended up dropping chemistry, and I then applied for economic history at the London School of Economics, and I actually did a gap year in between, but that's a whole long story. But I ended up getting an unconditional offer from LSE, and that's where I studied.
Oh wow, I love that. I love that story. I mean, it must have been so hard adjusting to a total different environment, like you said, private, being that you went to school in, you know, East London, and the schools weren't the best. So how were you able to, you know, adapt and, you know, adjust in that environment?
Ooh, this is like going back to like times that were just like, I think that was the first time I realized that I was like from to use like the correct terms, from a low socioeconomic background. I never like, because everyone I grew up around me was very similar financial status. Obviously, like you watch TV and you know that some people are very, very wealthy, but to actually like get put in that position, then you're actually like, oh wow, like I'm really poor. Like some people would have like they would send like, they'll get their chauffeur to school. And I remember one time there was like, I think this collaboration between this like fashion brand, and she was like, oh, I'm just gonna call my chauffeur to like stand in the line for me. And it was just very much like, oh, my parents are flying in just for parents' evening. It was like big shock. And it was just like little things, like everyone had a MacBook, and like I still had like a Toshiba laptop, and I would never bring it to school because I was like, I'm not going to be the odd one out. So I didn't actually have the best time. I think that was probably one of my worst years. And I went from being like the top of the class to like mid of the class. And so I lost a lot of confidence as well. Yeah, so it was actually a really, really hard year for me. But the school was, one thing I'll say about private schools though, is they're very serious in like getting their student to the top 5 universities. Like there was no, even the students who aren't, a lot of them aren't smart actually in private school, but like they will do everything that they can. They call the schools, like going off on a tangent now, but like in my old school, if someone didn't do well and they missed their firm choice, they'll be like, okay, fine, don't worry, like just go to your insurance. Not at private school. If you missed your offer, they will call the university and beg them and tell them like, you should take them. Like, and people have gotten offers from them doing that. So it's a very different ball game. But it wasn't the best of time for me. But I think eventually I was just like, you know what, I've just got one year here. Just get your grades and go to university.
So Lamide, what does a day in a life in your banking role look like typically?
Sure. So I work in credit risk, and it's actually quite a role that I really, really like. So what the role does, what like the whole point of the credit risk division is, you know, like let's say everyone knows that the bank does like M&A, right? So company A acquires company B, and a bank will help company A, let's say, raise 100 million to acquire company B. But actually the bank whatever bank it is, they don't take the whole 100 million and lend that to company A. They might help them raise 100 million, but then they will, I'm trying to not use technical terms, but they will spread that 100 million between loads of different banks. And so my bank, for example, any bank will only hold, like, let's say 10% of that 100 million that they helped to raise. And the rest will be what we call like syndicated down to other banks. So that 10% that we hold, or whatever the amount that the bank decides to hold, it's credit risk's job to basically determine like how much should we be able to hold, and for the amount that we hold, like what documentation terms, because the whole point is that we are there to prevent the bank from losing money. So any sort of risk or debt that the any sort of risk or lending that the bank does and it takes it onto its balance sheet, that is our job to protect that amount, and also to take into effect like regulation, which will say, like, following on from the 2008 financial crisis, right? Before then, the regulation was a lot relaxed on like the kind of debt that you can take on, right? So that's why people were taking on debt that weren't very good. But post the financial crisis, that's really when the credit risk division started to boom, because regulators started to realize the importance of, actually, you can't just take on any debt. It needs to be good debt. And even if you're taking on bad debt, then you need to have a certain amount of capital pledge so that if things go wrong, you can protect yourself. And so that's basically what the credit risk division does. So more generally, you will be on like deals and stuff, and you will be able to opine on how much of a hold, which is what we call it, how much of a hold the bank should take onto its balance sheet. You also do like an internal rating for the clients that the banks brings on, and you kind of just manage the credit risk that the bank has towards loads of different counterparties.
So it sounds it. And just for the people that might not be aware, M&A refers to mergers and acquisitions, right?
Yeah.
Awesome. So Lamide, tell us, what 3 things or habits make you a success at what you do today? I know one of your top watched videos was 6 habits that made me 6 figures by the age of 23. But specifically to what you do, like what 3 things or habits would you say make you a success?
Oh, to what I do, I would say that, and this kind of applies more generally, is the ability to, like, when things are going wrong, to not just give up and give in. Like, you need to be able to come up with a new plan of action when things are going wrong. So even just like, you can't give up too easily, I think is kind of what I'm able to say. You have to be like okay in the face of things going wrong, and you need to like go into action and think, okay, how can I solve this? And this goes for even just getting into banking. Like I said, in my first year, I got all rejections from the big investment banks that I wanted to get into, and I could have just been like, okay, maybe this is a sign that investment banking is not for me. I mean, I could have just left it, but I was like, actually no, it's time to regroup, think about what I did, what went wrong, and then reapply. And then when I reapplied, I got all offers from everywhere that I did apply to. But then even with our work, right, like recently there was like the Russian-Ukraine war, right, that really affects a division like credit risk, because now, you know, regulation is saying or like the especially because I work for an American investment bank, that it was like, there's no way you can do any deals with anyone in Russia. And now we have a bunch of exposure to Russia, and everyone's kind of in crisis. We're like, okay, what the hell are we going to do? You can't like just panic in that space. You have to go, okay, what is it that I do have? What is it that I do know? What protections is it that we do have? And how can we use that to make sure that we have our backs covered? So that's the first thing that I would say. The second thing, I would say in relation to the role then or work, I think you do always have to be open to learning. Like, learning just doesn't stop at uni, unfortunately. Like, you continue to learn literally every single day, and to be good at it, you have to be willing to soak in information, and sometimes quite a lot of information at once. And I think the easiest way to do that is kind of to have some level of interest in what you're doing, and then you can soak up things quite easily. And the last thing that I would say, this is just more in general, I think like the company that you keep and the things that you ingest definitely affects whether you will be a success or not. And when it comes to like the company that you keep, a big thing is friends, but it isn't just friends, because even like the things that you consume like on social media, or the things that you watch on YouTube, and the things that you watch on TV, you don't realize how much that influences the person that you become. And so yeah, so I would say like that is like definitely like the third thing, and probably one of the more important things, is what you have around you and the people you have around you, and what you take in consciously or like subconsciously.
How do you actually regulate your use of social media such that you're consuming things that, you know, help to improve who you are, make you more effective and a better person?
Yeah, I think this is a really important one. The first time like I had like a huge social media audit was, I think, maybe like just going into university, when I decided that, you know what, I want my life to change. It was as simple as like going through like all the channels that I was subscribed to, and unsubscribing to everyone who I felt like didn't align to the person that I wanted to become. And I was very, very extreme with it. Like, I don't even like now on social media, and I know that there's nothing wrong with it, but even stuff like the Kardashians are just so annoying. Like, I block, like they've done nothing to me, but they're blocked. They're blocked. Like the Shade Room, Shade Borough, stuff like that. Like all those gossip channels, it's all like blocked. And yeah, and I go through audits all the time of like who I'm following, and try to unfollow as much as possible. But also on the flip side as well, it's also good to follow people who are doing what you want to do, to get some inspiration. And I always say to people, like sometimes like I will log onto social media, and then I'll like click on through people's stories, and everyone who like I'm following is in the gym, or like they're working on their side hustle, or they're talking about something that they've done. And I'm like, okay, cool, this makes me actually want to get off social media and actually go do something.
What do you love about what you do, your job?
I think the thing that I like most about my role is that I found the sweet spot for me. I think when I was at university, there's only like, the investment bank is huge, and it has so many different divisions and so many different roles you can do. But when I was at university, there were only two roles that everyone was speaking about, and that's like the markets. So those are like the traders and the salespeople. When you typically watch like shows that have investment bankers, you usually see them like with the trading floor and like loads of screens and stuff. And then on the other side is like the M&A side of things. But I like knew in my first year that both of those things didn't really work for me. I didn't really love like the market side a lot, and I really didn't love the lifestyle, particularly of being like an M&A banker. Those are the bankers that you typically hear of with like 14-hour work days, 16-hour work days, finishing at 3 a.m. Like I knew I didn't want both of those things. And I'm just so happy that like, knowing that I didn't just do what everyone else was doing, I went and found a division that I felt like really catered to the things that I wanted. So I still got to work on like these deals and understand how to do a model, how to do valuation and stuff. But then the work-life balance is so much better. And I will say, and I think that is really what I love about my role, because that means that I can do things like this. That means that I can have my side hustles and stuff, which we will talk about. And it's not like my dream role, the perfect role ever, but it's like the perfect compromise of like all the things that I could live with. Because I realized that the dream role doesn't really exist. You just kind of get a good balance. I think this was a good balance for me.
You spoke about, you know, long hours. Could you tell us what the challenges are of working in investment banking and also within your role?
So like, for example, particularly during COVID, where you have some industries that were doing really, really well, for example, like your food delivery companies, and then you have other companies that were doing really, really bad. That sort of dichotomy. And so the team that I was in was called TMT, so that's technology, media and telecoms. So during COVID, some of the technology companies were doing really, really well. Some of the media companies were doing really, really bad. Because if you think about it, if you're doing adverts outside of Westfield and nobody's going to Westfield because everybody's in lockdown, then your business is severely affected. And I think just in general in credit, the hours were very, very, very long. And then sometimes just in general, like when you work very closely to transactions, some transactions can turn around very, very quickly, and it can be quite intense, and the hours can be quite long.
Let's talk about money. We're on a money channel here. Give us an idea of earnings for somebody in that sort of role that you're in right now, in investment banking. What does it look like from a kind of a per annum perspective?
Yeah, so I always say that banking is one of the best paid sectors for when you're just coming out of university. I think there aren't very many competitors. Corporate law does pay very well, but you have to do extra studying after you finish university. You have to go to like law school and stuff like that.
Yeah.
Consulting pays good, but not as good. But banking is definitely one of the best paid. And I think London is the finance hub, so it kind of makes sense. So I would say in general, for like the best paid roles in your first year, on average, I would say now it's about 60K starting salary as a base.
Wow.
And it can go anywhere up to like, I would say at the bulge bracket investment banks, so these are like the big investment banks, in your first year, 60K is probably standard. Maybe the better investment banks in terms of pay will pay you like 70, 75. And then like as a second year analyst, maybe around 70K, 80K. But then you also have to remember that the bonuses in banking can be very, very good as well. Some people get their whole base as a bonus. So you can very easily be on six figures by your second year, like at the bank, by your third year at the bank.
Okay.
Oh, wow. So what is the maximum income potential for somebody who is an investment banker or credit analyst?
Maximum income potential, I would say as an analyst, probably around like 100K in pounds. 100K, 120 is probably like the max that you will get. Yeah, I would say that. But when I think about money, you kind of also have to think about like, what's your actual take home, right? Because after you earn a certain amount, you're getting taxed like 45%. So is that extra 10K, 20K, 30K bonus, is it really adding to like what you actually take home? Does it really make that much of a difference? But yeah, I would say like around 100K for an analyst. Like obviously it differs as you move up as an associate, a VP, ED, etc.
Right. Do you have any plans of increasing your income in that career path you're in? And if so, how do you plan on doing it?
So I think the really good thing about banking is that your salary generally goes up by about 5K every year. So in a sense, you kind of like have a guaranteed pay increase every single year. And obviously the better you perform each year, the better you're rated, the more bonus you take home. So I think that would probably be my goals in terms of increasing my income through my traditional job.
So what top 3 pieces of advice would you give to somebody who wants to, they're watching this video and they're like, I want to do what Lamide's doing?
First advice I would say is to subscribe to my YouTube channel. So on my channel, I have 2 channels. One I started like before and it's a bit more banking focused. I have a ton of videos of my journey into banking and like what a CV should look like, what a cover letter should look like, how to ace the assessment centers and interviews and stuff like that. I also have an online store called the Resource Bank where I've put up model CVs and model cover letters and typical questions and answers that you would get when doing these banking applications and interviews. So that would be my first tip. My second advice, if you're at university especially, is to get started now. Like I said, there's programs for your first year, your second year, and even in your third year as well. You can do programs. You can have lunches with these firms. There's so many things that you can do. So get involved as early as possible. And the third thing that I would say is to do some research, like make sure it really is for you, because a lot of people do tend to go into banking because it pays very well, but then they end up severely burnt out, then they hate their jobs, and there's a whole mental health crisis that can follow if you're just doing something for the money, but you can't actually, the environment isn't for you, because it isn't for everyone. So yeah, that's what I would say.
Let's shift gears a bit from talking careers to talking about personal finances. How would you describe your current relationship with money at the moment?
I would describe my current relationship with money as positive. I would say that I have recently moved from like having a scarcity mindset with regards to money to an abundance mindset. And I think that was a big shift that I needed to have. I didn't even really know that I had a scarcity mindset, but I think it's very, like, speaking to other people who have grown up similarly to myself, it's very easy to pick up a scarcity mindset when you don't come from a background of financial abundance. Knowing that like money isn't in abundance. So you have to be very like financially savvy, or I wouldn't even call it financially savvy. You just have to be very cheap with things, you know, like things like your hair. You don't always have the luxury of going to the hairdresser, or maybe you do, but you rather want to save that money to, I don't know, get something else, or you do your hair for yourself. Or you can pay for someone to fix your bed that you bought from IKEA. You could pay for it, but you'd rather do it yourself because you don't know when the next like, you know, you're living in a household that lives check to check, right? So you're always trying to save as many coins as possible. And I grew up like that. And I think it was really good in the beginning stages because it helped me to save a lot. But then you start to realize that actually sometimes you do need to spend to be able to make more money. And that was something that I couldn't get comfortable with because I was like, if I can do it for myself, I'm going to do it for myself. I'm not going to pay somebody. Why would I pay a personal trainer when I can just go on YouTube and figure it out? Why would I, you know, pay for that when I can just, you know, like just look, I was just very, I wasn't stingy, but I would try to be as resourceful as I can when it wasn't necessarily like, when it wasn't necessary. My financial situation had changed a lot, but my mindset towards my money hadn't changed a lot. And so when I realized that, how would I say that I actually made the change? I guess like every time when I would make a decision when I wouldn't want to do something, I'd have to like unpack that. Like, you don't want to get a YouTube editor. Why is it that you don't want to get a YouTube editor? Is it because you feel like you should save that extra £100 or you should save that extra £50? If you do spend that money, if you do spend that money getting an editor, how is that going to help you? Is that going to help you to free up your time? And is it more valuable to have time on your side or to have, you know, an extra £100 on your side? And just having to like really like work through my thoughts and try to like see, and if I would see that it's coming from a place of there's not enough money or I need to like save everything that I have, then I will try to like undo that and just let go of some money as well.
I love that, and I think you've answered the next question, but you can still I guess touch on it, which is, what do you personally think that you learned from your parents about money growing up?
Yeah, I would say that so I grew up in a single parent household, so I think my mom really did the best that she could. My mom was actually born here, but she grew up in Nigeria. And because for her, the situation that she sees people in over there is so much worse than what it is over here, she never really aimed for financial abundance over here. She kind of saw us having like, you know, we go to school for free, you know, the council gives you a house, and you have some sort of food downstairs, you have some sort, even if the house isn't filled with food, you have food there. So like any extra that she would have, she would just send it back to Nigeria all the time. And so we were in a like, when I was younger, I didn't really understand it because I'm like, I want new shoes and you're sending money back. Like, I can't go on this school trip and you're sending money back home. And she would always be like, but you're in such a better position compared to those people. So, but now I know that. But back then I felt like I was just like, I am not living check to check. I can't do that because I'd always known my mom got paid, because for the 2 weeks after that, the day that she got paid, things were great. And then the last 2 weeks, that last 2 week stretch before she got paid again, it was very, very, very tight. You could see it in the fridge. You can see it in, you know, just the money you would get to go to school. And that definitely motivated me to make sure that I wasn't living check to check and that I had a good level of financial security. So I would say it was more so what I didn't want for my financial situation. But one thing I did take away though is like helping people, because my mom, like, most of her money goes towards helping other people, and so that's something positive that I have taken from her.
Yeah, I love that. I love the reflection around, like, just observing the fact that your mum in particular was okay with life in the UK, because it was, you know, you got free school, free housing. It's almost easy to overlook that.
Yeah,
it's actually it's actually a really subtle observation, but it's actually a really important one, because I think a lot of people can relate to that.
Oh yeah, I can definitely relate to that. So.
Yeah. Let's talk side hustles, right? Because I know you're big on side hustles. Just talk to us about, do you have a side hustle right now? You mentioned it earlier. What is it, and how does it actually make you some money?
Yeah, so I would say that My main side hustle is YouTube, and the good thing about YouTube as a side hustle is it's a very good way to branch into loads of other different side hustles. So I also have like an online store where I sell resources to assist people in getting into banking, and I also have a friend of mine who is a qualified career coach who also offers coaching services through that platform. And so then YouTube in itself also brings in revenue, and then you also do brand sponsorships related to YouTube. You can also do like affiliate links and make money through that. I also have a planner that I use for like organizing my life, and I also sell that as well, the planner template. I also invest in property. This is something that I've been doing for the last 2 years, and that also brings me in income as well. I think those are the main ones.
Wow, you're very busy, Lamide.
You're on it.
You are on it. I love to see it. But tell us, how do you manage to balance having a side hustle, many side hustles, with your successful day job?
Yeah.
I think the first thing is to realize that it can be done. Like, a lot of people always ask me like, oh, like, how do you do it? How do you do it? And like, oh, I can never do that, but you've never actually tried. And the fact that you think that you can't do it is why you're not going to be able to do it, because you don't think it's possible. So I knew, like, coming into this, that this is something that I'm going to do and I'm going to make it work. And so I picked a role that I felt like would be a bit more flexible to allow me to do that. But when you go into something and you say to yourself, I'm going to get this done, you will make space for it. You will make time for it. And something that I remember hearing, I don't know who said it, but he was talking about people and exercise, right? Most people would, if you ask them, why don't you exercise every day? They will tell you, I don't have time. But if you said to them, you will die next week if you don't exercise every single day, they're going to find time to exercise every single day, right? It's just how bad do you want it? So I think that's the first thing. And then the second thing is just making sure that you have the systems set up around you to allow you to do that. So you have to be very, very organized. It just doesn't work if you're not organized. That's why I have the planner that I use to try and like keep me focused on things. I have to be very strict as well with work and like not take work home. I have to set boundaries with, okay, I'm finishing work at 7, I'm finishing work at 7. I always say that I'm a morning person, so I like to wake up really early. And so I like to wake up around like at 5 a.m. and do a little bit of my own stuff before I head to work. So it's just kind of like finding little different ways to kind of sneak my own stuff, not sneak because it's nothing to hide. Like, I think everyone should have a side hustle, to be honest. But to add my own stuff in during the day-to-day. And then I also have the weekends as well. And I enjoy what I do, so I don't mind doing things on the weekend.
Cool. Yeah, so a lot of things you said there resonate with us. You know, we love to start early. We really agree with you in that the systems are very important because, you know, you need the systems to be able to run the life around you so that you can live the life you want. You know. Yeah. So yeah, no, that really resonates a lot. So you talked a bit about property. It's obviously a dream for a lot of people to get onto the property ladder. So do you want to just tell us a bit about your property portfolio and how did you actually get onto buying your first property?
Yeah, so at the moment, I have 2 properties. So one is a 2-bed semi-detached house in the West Midlands. I bought that one last year in 2021, yeah. And then I bought one recently this year in South Africa, and that is a 1-bed luxury apartment. And how I got started, I think the first time I knew that I wanted to purchase a house sometime was like when I was like 18 and I was doing a vision board for my life for the next 10 years. And I sort of did this vision board, and I had like get my job, and then after job it had like have a family, and then it had house and a car. I didn't really think about property investing. I just knew that at some point I was going to buy a house. And then I took a gap year before I went to university, and I saved a bit of money, and I was thinking when I got to uni, what should I do with this money? And so me and a friend of mine thought about like buying a house. Mind you, I had like £8,000 at this time that I saved during my gap year. And then I realized I can't buy a house with £8,000, not in the UK. So I kind of dropped that. And then in my second year, a friend of mine invited me to an event, a personal finance event, and the lady speaking was Aisha Ofori, and she, just for like a quick overview, she was someone who worked in banking as well, and by the age of around 30 or so, she had managed to double her income as an executive director at her bank using property. And I thought that was absolutely amazing. And when I heard that, like, alarm bells was just ringing in my head. I mean, I was in my second year of university at this time. And so I was like, that is something that I want to do. Let me get on it. I didn't know anything about property investing at this point. I didn't have that much money. But one thing that she taught me was that you need three things to make money: time, knowledge, and money. And I didn't have enough money to get started in property. I had no knowledge, but because I was in university, I had quite a bit of time. So what I decided to do was, I'm going to trade my time for some knowledge so that when I do have money, I can invest into property. And so what that looked like for me was, I offered to work for her for free. So she had like a women's property network and a black property network that she was running at the time. So I offered to work to her for free so that I can learn from the people who were speaking at those events. And so that's kind of what I did. And that's how I first started getting to terms with property and property investing and hearing different people's stories. And then the pandemic hit. I couldn't do these events anymore. So I just picked up 2 books by Rob Dix on property investing. And I just got started, and yeah, by the time I joined my work, I just waited for my 3 pay slips, and I just went ahead and bought my first property.
So, just curious, so this is very important, this actually, because like for so many people, making that first move is like, so it's almost impossible for lots of people. So why the Midlands, first of all, and why Joburg in South Africa? I'm just trying to understand the thinking there.
Yeah, first. So the Midlands, because properties in London are very, very, very expensive. And especially when you want your first property to be an investment property, you now have to put down 25% of that house price. That is a lot of money. To put down 25% of 600k, that's going to take me an extremely long amount of time. So I thought, okay, cool. I don't think it's going to be London, but what's another like hotspot where I can trust that property prices are going to rise over time, where I can get a good rental income? Then I thought about Birmingham, and then what are the areas surrounding Birmingham? So I bought it's just 10-20 minutes outside of Birmingham, and I used a sourcer for that. So this is a sourcer that I met at actually one of Aisha's events, and he sourced the property for me.
Excellent.
Awesome.
Wow. So, and do you mind, are you able to share in the region of cost for that property? What sort of pricing compared to London, which is for context for people?
Yeah. So, okay, so imagine so in my area, I literally was speaking to an agent or a developer 2 weeks ago or so on a 1-bed here, a new build, okay, 1-bed. It was like 636k for a flat. The house that I bought, right? This is Hackney, yeah. Okay. This is Hackney. The house that I bought is a 2-bed semi-detached house, right, with a parking spot, with a big garden, and it was like 125k. For the whole house, right? That's like a freehold, you own that forever, versus a leasehold flat. And obviously location is everything, but you can see money-wise, you can just get started on the property ladder a lot quicker if you buy outside of London. So then the deposit for that was around, I think it was around like 30k.
So 25% plus expenses, basically.
Yeah, so it was like 30k for the deposit, or maybe 30 something, plus all the expenses on top and stamp duty. I think the total that I put down was around 40k or like 38k, something like that.
Right. Okay. And you're a first-time buyer by then, so you wouldn't have paid the extra stamp duty as well. So talk to us about Joburg, because that's actually really, really that sounds like, wow, luxury apartment. I've been waiting to talk about this one. So, we've just before we started recording, we talked about Mary and I've been to Ghana and stuff. So we've got this vision of traveling through Africa. It's a big dream of ours. And so South Africa has been in fact, it was on our vision board for 2020. Then of course the pandemic hit and that just got wiped out. So we didn't end up going. So it's very interesting to hear you talk about Joburg. So why South Africa? Give us just highlights of what the property purchase was like. What was it? Roughly what did it cost? I'm just curious, even for me. I'm just very curious about that.
Yeah, I think this is a question I get asked a lot. Why is South Africa And it was just a range of things that I don't even know where to get started. Okay, so first things first, I watched this girl on YouTube called Chidi Ashley, and she worked in corporate America, but then ended up moving to Bali to live there, and she was able to.
That's where I know her from.
She is amazing. She is amazing. Yeah. So she built this crazy villa in Bali, and as she was just talking about her experiences, she was just talking about how much easier it is to save when you earn in dollars or GBP, but you live on a different currency that is almost like not nothing, but like can't compare to USD or GBP, right? And I was like, that is so true. And she was talking about how that was what enabled her to be able to build that that villa that she built. And I started thinking about that as well. I was like, that is so true, because I came across that principle also in, I think, the 4-Hour Work Week, and he talks about building a business in the US, but then moving to like Mexico or somewhere like that, and living on a lot smaller. So I think that video just got me thinking a bit more globally, and I was thinking, where would I actually want to live? And for me, there's not that many places, especially as a Black person who wants to feel comfortable in the country that they move to. I'm gonna cut up like a lot of options. For me, it's just there's not very many places, and so I thought, oh, what do you think about Africa? Like Nigeria, they've got a lot of work to do, so we'll leave that one out. And then I thought, okay, so what's one of the most like developed places in Africa? And that was South Africa. And then I started watching a lot of like South African shows like Blood and Water and Young, Famous and African and stuff, and I was like, I want to go there. And so I actually wasn't intending on buying there. I was starting to think about buying my second property at the end of last year, and what I wanted to do was do this series where I would compare South African property or rental income versus UK income, right? Because digital nomading is like quite a popular thing now. So I just wanted to like do that comparison for myself and for like other people who were interested. And whilst I was doing that research, I stumbled across the development that I bought in, and I was like, this is amazing. And I was going to rule it out because I was like, well, this isn't rent, so I can't do the comparison for the video that I want to do. But I was like, I'll just go check it out anyways because it's really nice. And so I went there and I went to go check it out. And I was just blown away by how nice it was. I was blown away, first of all, by how nice South Africa was. You literally feel like you're in Europe. You literally feel like you're in Europe, but there's Black people everywhere. And some white people too, but there's Black people everywhere. And the weather is good. It's so much cheaper. And so that's kind of what took me to that development. So the actual cost of the apartment was 100K, which is relatively actually quite expensive for buying in Africa. But the area is like A1, one of the best that you would find in Johannesburg. I chose Johannesburg as opposed to Cape Town. A lot of people ask me, why didn't you go to Cape Town? Because Johannesburg is somewhere that I can actually see myself moving back there. They have loads of the world's biggest companies there. My company's there. They have Microsoft, they have Facebook, they have, it's usually the headquarters for most global companies, for the, like, it's usually the African headquarters. So I chose Johannesburg because I thought it would be more, it's more somewhere that I would move to. It's a lot more similar to London than Cape Town is. Cape Town is very like relaxed beach vibes, but Johannesburg was very like city vibes. And so yeah, so it's 100K, but the area is really, really good. It's obviously a new build, so you have that new build premium. The amenities are out of this world. The location is it's just everything that I needed. And so yeah, that was how much it cost. I decided to buy in cash because the process of trying to get a mortgage abroad is very, very, very difficult. And I just didn't want the stress of it. So yeah.
Wow. That's incredible.
Impressive, yeah.
Honestly, that just sounds so exciting. So is that an investment property, or is that more holiday vibes?
Yeah, so it's definitely an investment property. That was another thing as well. The rental, the net rental income that I would get from that property is actually better than the one that I get from my UK property. That's how good the location is, and also because there's no interest payment because I don't have a mortgage. So the way it works over there, because I want to do an Airbnb, so Airbnbs are very, very lucrative. And what you can do over there is you can get like a 3-year contract with the company, and they will pay you fixed guaranteed returns for 3 years, and like use your place as an Airbnb. So that's something similar to what I might do.
Amazing.
I'm really intrigued by this. Like, anyway, because Mary and I have been talking about property a lot, and anyway, so we can chat. We can chat some more.
Another conversation.
It's another conversation. Yeah. We can definitely chat some more.
So Lamide, tell us, So Lamide, tell us, what do you currently spend most of your money on per month, and what do you also spend your money on to treat yourself?
Yeah, this is actually quite an interesting question because I made a huge change this year. So last year, I was listening to Transformation Church. I don't know if you guys have heard of Transformation Church in Pastor Mike. Yeah. And at the end, it was towards the end of the year, and I always do like my end of year assessment, and I kind of re-evaluate my 5 main areas of my life. And the area that always ranked like the bottom, like the least, was always like health and fitness. I think because I'm naturally slim, I just never really like thought of like going to the gym, and like it just didn't really cross my mind. It's just like, oh, I'll be fine. And then I was listening to a sermon at the end of last year, and he was like, where your treasure is, there your heart is also, which was kind of like a remix on one of the verses. And what he was saying is you can tell what someone really cares about by what they spend their money on. And I was like, you can really tell from my finances that I don't care about my health because there's no form of it that goes towards my health. So I said this year, one thing that I'm going to really, really take really seriously is my health and my fitness. So I would say that's what I spend the most money on. So I have a personal trainer that costs me about like £45 every session. Then I still have to pay for gym, which is like £40. And I also have had to change my diet now and like eat more protein and stuff like that. So it's not the most interesting answer, but it's actually like my health and my fitness is actually what I spend the most money on. Yeah, that's really it.
How many sessions do you do per month?
Do 1 to 2 sessions a week. If I have something coming up, I'll do like 2 a week. If just on a normal month, I'll just do 1 session a week. So I think it comes up to like 180 for the PT, and then £40 for the gym membership. So around 200 and something a month on gym.
Yeah, and that's not crazy expensive, particularly as you can like. I'm thinking as a business person, like you can work this out with your business, right? This is investment in you as an individual. So
yeah,
this is actually a business expense if you have to think about it that way.
Definitely.
You look like you've never thought about that. But that's really good to hear actually, because like health, like honestly, there's really no point in us working, grafting, investing, doing all these things if our health is not in good shape. There's just no point.
Yeah.
There's just no point.
So true.
Because like I can say for sure that I've seen in the last 6 months a variation of things have happened in and around our lives. Either we've kind of lost someone, or people have fallen ill, or they've gone to the doctor and they've found out like something's really bad with their health situation. And then you think, well, actually, that has massive knock-on effects on everything else, on work, business. And if you're not the kind of person who's made smart investments with your money, like you've got assets to generate income, that just literally just completely knocks down your future lifestyle and what have you.
Absolutely.
So that health is really like P1, it's like priority number 1.
Yeah.
And after that priority number 1 comes everything else.
Exactly. It allows you to enjoy, all your hard work. Like, what have you been working hard for if you can't enjoy it in good health? So yeah, we love that. And just for context, are you living by yourself? Have you got a mortgage? Are you at home? Like, what's your situation?
Yeah, so I still live at home.
Wow.
Really short.
I love it.
We love it, and I did exactly.
Mary did exactly the same thing. Yeah,
I'm living at home until I get married.
Yeah,
but not a lot of people. Like a lot of people be surprised by that. As in, you're earning quite a lot. You're young, and you pretty much have your own independence. Like, why are you at home? But that's amazing. Why not be?
Why not be at home?
Yeah.
I think that's just insanely smart, personally.
It's very smart,
because like you've got 2 investment properties so far. There'll be many more in the future. You've got like your own side hustles, like, but you're at home, where you grew up, and you're saving a lot of money at the same time as I'm guessing probably contributing at home as well to your parents' home and stuff.
Absolutely.
So that's really fantastic. Can you think about any money mistakes you've made growing up? You're in your I'm going to say maybe your 20s, I'm guessing. So what mistakes have you made so far? Because, everything we've heard has been you've made some really smart moves. But have you done anything that you think when you look back, you're like cringe, or you're like, wow, boy, I wish I didn't do that,
Oh, okay. I'll share one thing. When I first started started on my gap year, I was, again, like I was still living at home. So I was actually I probably had the most cash flow in the house. And so I became the bank of the house. Everyone used to come to me to borrow money and stuff like that. And what would happen is a lot of the time is I would get my money, I would put some into savings and I would leave some, and then someone would come and ask me for money, and then I would dip into those savings to help that person. I always charged a really, 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 really high interest rate, but much higher than any other bank would charge them. But like they couldn't get any from the bank, so they would come to me. And I think there came a point where I realized I needed to stop doing that. And even like, I would have these ISAs where you lock money away and you could only withdraw like up to 3 times. And I was eventually like dipping into that as well, because I was like borrowing people money. And I realized I needed to put like a boundary on that and like stop doing that. And I would just tell people that actually, this was before I got the ISA. I just had like a normal savings account, like in Barclays, but you could easily transfer money in and out. And then I realized that I needed to not do that and get the ISAs where you can't withdraw anything. You put the money in and the money is done, because then I felt a lot more comfortable saying no to people, because before I wouldn't feel comfortable to say no, because I felt like, well, like, you have the money there, just transfer money in and out of your savings, you'll be fine. But that's a really bad habit to develop. And I wasn't even doing it for myself. I was doing it for other people. And it wasn't because they were in need or something. It was just because they wanted it for something that wasn't like necessary to have. And that was a boundary that I had to enforce. And even with contributing at home as well, a lot of people ask me about this. And I would always say, like, I do a standing order, a fixed amount, because when you don't do that, 1 month you're giving this amount and the next month you don't even keep track of how much you're contributing.
What would you say is your ultimate financial goal?
My ultimate financial goal is to not have to like live for money, to have basically like full financial freedom, where if I decide not to work, it's fine. If I want to just move to Cambodia for 3 months, like I'll be fine. That's my ultimate financial goal. And I think that's why for me, it's so important to have things like side hustles and investments, because I know that you can be very, very financially comfortable in banking, but you will never have financial freedom, because you are always at the beck and call of the bank, of your manager, of the deal that you are on, of your clients. So yeah, my ultimate goal is to just have full financial freedom.
Wow.
Love it.
I love it. Honestly, I've got to say, Lamide, this interview's been absolutely fun doing with you. I have to say, like, there's so many inspiring elements to everything you shared today. I love the fact that, like, you are still living at home. As of the time we're making this interview, you're literally in your parents' house right now. But you can count, I have a cash down property in South Africa. I've got a property in the Midlands that's making me an income. I've got a very good job. I've got side hustles. I've got and you're still in your 20s. I'm guessing you're early to mid 20s, and you're living an incredible life and still obviously working hard towards achieving your goals. I just think everything you said today has been so inspiring. It's just
absolutely
been
inspiring,
incredible.
Remarkable, and yeah, great, amazing people come out of Hackney. So
period.
Yeah, honestly, very inspiring, super inspirational, and yeah, kudos to you. So guys, we're definitely going to put all the Lamide's handles, so you can find her on Instagram, on YouTube. So we'll put all the links in our description box if you want to check her out, but definitely do check her out. She has an amazing YouTube channel and you will absolutely love her content. Lamide, thank you so much. Really, really enjoyed, like Ken said, this interview. I really appreciate you being on our show.
And being so open and being so, so open and candid. It's been really, really fun.
Thank you guys, I had loads of fun.
That's awesome. Guys, If you've really enjoyed today's video, we'd really appreciate it if you hit the like button. That just gets this video promoted to so many more people. And if you haven't already, come on, like, subscribe to the channel already. Show us some love for the work we put into the humble penny. As always, guys, thank you so much for watching today's video. And as always, in all things,
Be thankful and seek joy. Take care, guys. Bye.
Bye.